Welcome. Welcome to the Household Goods 2022 annual meeting. I am Barbara Howland, and I've been an active volunteer at Household Goods for 5 years or so, and I am currently the board president. As of right now, there are 66 people observing the annual meeting, and the numbers may be rising. We'll see. Just logistically, if you have any questions or if you would like to make some comments, please use the chat feature on the Zoom. It will be monitored throughout the program this evening, and we are also taping the program. I usually start a board meeting by reading a quote from one of our clients, and I'm going to start tonight's annual meeting doing the same thing. This place was just beautiful. The help was phenomenal. I truly appreciate all of Susan's help. She was really a great help. She helped me see things I didn't see I needed. Thank you again, Letitia. Just to put into perspective how gracious all of our clients are when they come and go home with a truck full of items to make their empty apartment into a cozy home. We have a brief business meeting that we must conduct, and after that we have some exciting speakers. Sharon Martin, the executive director, as well as our guest speaker, Jermaine Moore from Mars Hill Group. So let's start the business meeting. First, I'd like to have members of the board and the audience approve the minutes from the March 10th, 2021 meeting. Would you please raise your hand if you approve the minutes? And thank you. You can lower your hands, and then we'll have those that do not approve the minutes. Great. For those that don't approve of minutes, please raise your hand. It appears to me that we have unanimously approved the minutes from last year's annual meeting. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is my asking Philip Vander Weyden to come or to present the election of the directors and the officers for the board. Philip, take it away.
Great. Good evening, everyone. As part of our annual meeting, we present the slate of officers and directors each year. My name is Philip Vander Weyden. I'm the chair of the governance committee for the board of directors. And we have 4 officer spots: the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. And each of these individuals has agreed to serve for another year. They are also all members of the board of directors. In total, we have a slate of 15 board of directors up for approval. I have not done this before, so I think I will ask for everyone to raise their hand to approve the board slate, and then any not in favor, since I believe right now I'm only seeing the board members, but the general meeting is supposed to vote on this as well. So if you can either put your approval in the chat, or if you have a question or are against the board slate for some reason, please put that in the chat as well. And after a little bit of elapsed time, probably in 10 minutes, I will get back on to announce the result of the selection of the board. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Philip. I'd now like to introduce Sharon Martins, who after 12 years of being at Household Goods will share what has happened this year at Household Goods, as well as some of the new initiatives that we have undertaken and will continue into the future.
Hi, everybody. Oops, I guess I should lower my hand. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It should be a great evening, and I'm really looking forward to hearing Jermaine speak in a little bit. I really just want to take some time to let you know about some exciting things that we accomplished last year and what we have planned for this year. So just as a refresher of why we're here, Barb and Iris started Household Goods 32 years ago with the mission of providing a full range of donated furniture for free to people in need. And here we are 32 years later. And if we look back to January of 2021, we were still very deep in COVID. We were limiting people coming into the building. Our clients were shopping on tablets we provided from the parking lot in their vehicles. And we were really trying to keep people as spread out as possible. So from January to March, we furnished 391 homes. If you compare that to the end of the year, when we were able to have our clients back in person, we were able to add more volunteers to the building, get more people working together. We were able to furnish over 600 homes. So for the entire 2021, we furnished almost 2,000 homes. It's just like 1,994, which is really incredible. And the reason that we were able to do that is because of the tremendous, amazing volunteers that we have who came in throughout the pandemic, throughout our construction. So last year was really challenging. We moved our donation drop-off area 3 times because of our construction. Our COVID protocols, you can wear a mask, you don't wear a mask, you wear a mask, be 6 feet apart, you can be together. The constant changes that were happening made everything much more challenging. And I just want to say a huge thank you for all of the volunteers and the staff who worked so hard to now have 2,000 families living in furnished homes, because without them, we wouldn't have been able to do that. Last year, we made tremendous progress on the Build the Way Home expansion project. The project was really important for everything that we have done with COVID and also to take us beyond. Starting last year, we were able to dig up a few rocks right here. We had a few bumps and boulders and rocks along the way. But we were able to complete the 4,000 square foot building addition that now houses the processing of the lamps and appliances, the sorting room where all of the linens and kitchen items are processed. And we also have a much bigger storage area. So when we get the influx of our spring and summer donations, we have a lot more space where we can keep them ready for our clients that are coming year round. We also improved our donation drop-off. This was really important for 2 reasons. One, it allows us now to have clients coming to take their furniture. At the same time, we have donors dropping off furniture and other household items. And especially when we were limiting the number of people in the building, it was really important that we could add client shifts. So now we have clients picking up at the same time we have donors dropping off on Tuesday and Saturday mornings. And that's been really important for us to help as many clients as we can. The new donation drop-off area is also so much easier for people to drop off. There's no more backing up. There's no more negotiating that tight blind turn, pull in, unload, drive off. It's been really, really great. We also, as part of our expansion project, we made some changes for the clients in the showroom. The client parking is now easier for them to pull in and back up. They don't have to they can go in on an angle, so it's easier. And we've also made the shopping or selecting experience much more linear. We have better shelving, so things are easier for people to see. So we really tried to make it much easier for our clients to see everything that we offer that they can choose from. and to really make sure that they don't miss anything. Keeping in mind our clients, we have undertaken 3 new initiatives to improve the service to them. Anchor It, Fund a Bed and More, and the Transportation Assistance Pilot. And I'll go through each one of those to tell you about them in more detail. Anchor It. One of the things that we realize is that when people buy new furniture, they get a tip over, an anti-tip over kit to attach the furniture to the wall. And that's because in the US alone, someone is injured in a tip over from a piece of furniture, an appliance, or a TV every 17 minutes, according to the Consumer Product Safety Commission. And so we are now providing these anti-tip kits with the furniture that has the potential to tip over. And this was launched with the generosity of the manufacturer Hangman Products and the Nordblom Family Foundation. And it's really important because we feel that even though people are getting furniture that's used, they should still have access to the same potentially life-saving kits that people who are buying new furniture have. We also continued our fund and expanded our Fund a Bed and More program. Back in 2019, we wrote a grant to purchase queen beds because we realized that we were about 1,000 queen beds short every year between the families who would come looking for a queen particularly and what our inventory had been over the past few years. We launched that right in the beginning of 2020 when obviously COVID came, and we were continuing to help clients, but we weren't accepting donations at the time. And so Life Science Cares, who gave us this original grant, they gave us an additional grant to buy smaller essential household items that we weren't able to collect. Things like pots and pans, glasses, blankets, those types of things. And so after we expanded into it, one of the things we realized is that the short influx of inventory can really help us bridge some of the cycles of our donations. We don't have the luxury of being able to order things that we need. We rely on the generosity of people to give things to us when they have it. And so this funding has really made it possible for us to ride out some of those peaks and valleys in our inventory. This year, right now, we're using it to purchase twin beds for kids because we typically get a lot of college beds, but this year, because of COVID and construction, we weren't able to. So we've been using this funding to make sure that the kids who are coming to us have a nice, comfortable bed to sleep on. The third program that we started last year is our Transportation Assistance Pilot. And I have to say that this is one of the most exciting ones for me because we've known over the years that so many of our clients have struggled with transportation. And we thought that it was limited to the people who canceled their appointments or who had no-shows. But one of the things we realized over the last year from talking with our referring agencies is that there's a whole group of people that are living without furniture and they're never referred to household goods because the agencies know they have no way of getting transportation to move their furniture from household goods to their homes. And so one of the things we did is we applied to the MIT Sloan Leading with Impact program so we could figure out how we could reach these clients with the most need and the fewest resources. And we were assigned a very talented group of MBA students who came up with a program that has 3 approaches. They have the Hero Movers, which is where we're recruiting professional movers to provide pro bono moving services to clients from particular agencies or particular geographies. And so far we've had Mark's Moving and Storage, Piece by Piece Moving, Big Hill Movers, College Hunks Hauling Junk, and Tobin and Sons all step up to move families for free. We've also been working with the Mission Movers at the South Acton Congregational Church to expand their program to other community groups and faith communities. Mission Movers started at the South Acton Congregational Church 50 years ago, and they've get volunteers who rent a truck and come and pick up the furniture from Household Goods and bring it to the clients that we serve. And they've been working really locally with us for many years. And now they're talking to other community groups, temples, other churches. And we've had 2 new mission mover groups do moves, actually 3 new mission mover groups do moves this year. So that's exciting. The third approach of this program is to raise funding to provide gift cards for clients whose only barrier to coming to Household Goods is the money they need to rent a truck. And then we're also using the money to support some paid moves where we can combine multiple clients from different agencies to keep the cost down. We were able to launch this pilot last year with a bequest from our long-term volunteer, Malcolm Fongel. He passed away sadly last year, but with his bequest, we were able to really honor his commitment to Household Goods by starting this program. And since we started it at the end of last year, we furnished 36 homes through this program. And Life Science Cares has provided us a grant to expand and continue the program this year. So we're looking forward to reaching out to more agencies. We originally started with Boston Medical Center in their complex care patients. And we've been slowly adding additional agencies for this program. So that was all last year. So what's happening now? We are currently scheduling 80 client families a week, which is very close to our pre-COVID levels. We're scheduling appointments all day on Saturday morning and afternoon, which is new. We used to only do afternoons, and also all day Tuesday, and then the other Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday, Thursday afternoons. So to furnish 80 homes each week, we really need to have 80 couches, about 200 towel sets, 80 pots and pan sets, 80 dish sets, 80 kitchen starter sets. You get the math working there. And so to get all of that, we really need to get the furniture to us. And one of the things that we haven't gotten back to pre-COVID levels are our truck crews. So we're actively recruiting for people who would like to go out on our trucks, both to commercial sources, Boston College is coming, and residential sources to pick up furniture. And we're also looking to find groups and companies and businesses that are willing to do furniture drives. We had a number of groups, Temple Isaiah in Lexington, Plymouth Congregational Church in Belmont, Trinity Church, Tricon, Kerem Shalom, Suzanne and Company Realtor. We had all of these groups do drives for us this past winter and fall, and it made a huge difference. I'm really not sure how we could have furnished the homes we did without it. And so we're really looking for people to get together with their friends and rent a truck and do local drives. So if you're interested, feel free to let us know. Love to have you on board. On April 30th, we have our 30-something gala. We celebrated 30 years in 2020, but unfortunately we weren't able to have our gala then. It is on Saturday, April 30th. Here at Household Goods, we're going to have a big tent, a plated dinner. It should be a wonderful event. So if you're interested, check out our website. And I think talked a lot about all of the things that we've done and all of the accomplishments we've had over the year. And I just want to sort of bring us back to why. And I saw this note in our guest book, and I thought it really sort of resonated well for tonight. Tonight, I feel blessed and like I'll be okay for the first time since my husband passed. Me and my kids appreciate you more than you could ever know. And I think that we appreciate you more than you could ever know extends well beyond our volunteers, to our donors, to the people who support us financially, to people who spread the word. It really goes to everybody who makes Household Goods what it is today. And I think that when we look at when we look at clients like Jessica, it really makes us realize the depth of experiences that people have who come to us at Household Goods. Other questions? And Jessica, you know, her experience is very different from a lot of the other experiences that our clients have. And I think that it's really important to remember that since the beginning, our founders, Barb and Iris Smith, have always insisted that everyone at Household Goods be treated with dignity and respect. And that really means recognizing and appreciating the wide-ranging depth of the differences in the lives of everybody who comes to Household Goods. And as we interact with people who are different from us, maybe it's a different age or a race or an ability, maybe people have complex ongoing challenges, or maybe traumatic histories, we might wonder how our own experiences shape the way we understand and appreciate their experiences. So tonight, I am so delighted to present our keynote speaker, Jermaine Moore. He's the principal consultant of the Mars Hill Group. Jermaine is a corporate trainer, team developer, and executive coach with over 20 years of experience in diversity, inclusion, and change management. Tonight, he will discuss and welcome your questions on allyship and how we can all use our voices for good. So I will turn it over to Jermaine if he is ready.
I'm ready. Thank you so much, Sharon. So good to see you all this evening. Good evening, good evening. Hopefully you had your dinner and you're ready to relax for the rest of the night. I'm pretty excited to spend the next hour or so with this group. I've been so impressed with the team at Household Goods so far. And so I'm going to share my screen. We're going to talk about allyship tonight. And of course, I'm going to leave some time to answer any questions that you have to do this work even better. But a little bit about me. As Sharon mentioned, my name is Jermaine Moore. My company is called the Mars Hill Group. The Mars Hill Group is a firm that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion, training, executive coaching, team development, leadership development, communication training. You name it, we probably put it together. I came out of the corporate space. So if there was a skill gap or a knowledge gap, it was my job to fill that gap with learning and development. But of all the things that I do, I have a whole lot of passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion for a couple of reasons. One, it is very personal to me, and I think it has personal impact to me and my family. But two, and I think even more importantly, it's the one thing that I do that I get to focus on and get to partner with organizations to do that I think we can have just big, big impact. Not only can we impact current generations, but generations to come. And as much as I enjoy communications training, and much as I enjoy leadership development, I think DE&I has just a greater impact, not only in our organizations, but in our communities. So I'm very happy to share what I know with you, a little bit of what I know with you. Because I have such a passion for this work, I volunteer a lot of my time to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion around our region. I am the diversity director for SHRM's New Hampshire State Council. I'm also on the board of the Diversity Workforce Coalition, which is a member organization of companies like yourself who are interested to stay aware on the latest DE&I issues. They offer training, et cetera. So this is what I do. And tonight, again, I'm just very excited to share some information with you. I will tell you that no matter what I do, my training intent remains the same. It is your development. So if you leave this hour knowing a little bit more, allowing you to be even a little bit better at what you do, I think it's well worth your time. I really want this to be an investment of your time, not just time spent. And so I find great joy in helping people learn and sharing strategies that allow you to not only meet your personal goals, but organizational goals as well, particularly those of Household Goods. And so let's talk a little bit, let's jump into it. Anytime I do diversity, equity, inclusion work, I like to share additional guidelines, and that's how to have a courageous conversation or how to create a brave space. Because I think the more work we do up front, the more likely these conversations can be very productive and respectful for everyone involved. I know talking about diversity for some can be a very sensitive subject. Setting a framework for us to, or ground rules for us to engage with one another can really help these conversations stay on the rails. And so my Courageous Conversations guidelines would include just approaching these conversations with respect for one another, multiple perspectives, respect for multiple narratives, put aside any preconceptions that we have, embrace the discomfort of not knowing. I think I'm a big believer that most of our learning comes when we are outside of our comfort zone, when we feel a little stretched. So if you feel a little discomfort, don't run away from it, lean into it, because it just means that maybe learning is happening. Listen to be open to questions. Trust intent and acknowledge impact is two very important guidelines for our session. Can anybody just share what they think that means to trust intent, but acknowledge impact? Anybody have an idea? Trust intent means if there are two ways we can take a colleague's or a teammate's comment. One, they're coming from a good place, they're trying to build up, they're trying to be a part of a conversation. Or two, they're coming from a bad place, they're trying to hurt, harm, and offend. We're going to trust intentions. You got it, Nancy. Assume best intentions from one another. When we assume good intentions, it allows us to receive what people are saying better. And so we're going to trust intent. If there's two options, we're going to trust that people are coming from a good place. However, sometimes we may say something that it crosses a line and it does hurt, harm, offend, or a teammate. And if that happens, we're going to acknowledge that impact, because there's a point where our intentions go out of the window. It doesn't matter what we intend. What's important is the impact of the words that we say, because words are very, very powerful. Language is powerful. And so if that happens, we're going to acknowledge that impact and learn from it, be better because of it, and move on. That is what trust, intent, acknowledge, impact means. We're going to turn all these opportunities into learning opportunities. Safety is my goal, to create just a safe place for us to be our full, authentic selves. And of course, expect and accept non-closure. This just acknowledges that I'm going to share a perspective with you tonight. You may have a different perspective. And at the end of our hour together, we may not see eye to eye, but that's okay, because it's not my goal to convince anyone of anything. I'm hoping that I can share what I believe is an informed perspective. Ben, you can share your perspective as well. And it's okay if we're not 100% aligned. The most important thing is that we're learning from one another and we're all expanding our understanding. So that is what that means to expect and accept non-closure. I do believe in the collective wisdom of a group. You'll hear me say this over and over and over again. There's 80 of us on the line tonight. That's a lot of people. And 80 of us are way smarter than any one person. No matter how educated we think we are, 80 minds are much better than one. And so I would like to tap into that collective wisdom and intelligence of this group, which means that speak up, use the chat, share your thoughts, share your comments, and let's learn from one another. When we're learning from one another, it just makes for a much richer, much more diverse learning experience for us all. So just keep that in mind. All right. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about diversity. I think it's important that we keep, allyship is what we're going to, is our main focus, but I think we should keep allyship in the context of diversity, equity, inclusion. So I was wondering if anybody can share what they think diversity means, or what does it mean? We hear that word often, or actually we hear diversity, equity, and inclusion often. Does anybody have an idea what it means when we are talking about diversity? Either put it in chat or take yourself off mute and speak up. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Yeah, I see Mike. Mike says differences that we have from one another. And I think that's right on point. Appreciating differences in one another, Katie says. Yes, so if you look in the dictionary under what diversity means, it'll just say differing or differences from one another, or a way to recognize the uniqueness of each other. You're exactly right. In the context of diversity, equity, inclusion work, when we're talking about diversity, we're typically talking about identities and ways that people identify. So we're thinking about things like race, gender or gender expression, ethnicity, nationality, sexual orientation, age, physical abilities, religion, social economic status, which is often a forgotten aspect or dimension of diversity, neurodiversity, which just acknowledges that there are some of us whose brains function differently than others, and we want to make sure we leave space for that. Identities shape our lives. Identities inform how we walk through our life. So our identities are these relationships that we have with our community, with the people around us, with our past, with our history. So diversity, we're talking about all these identities. Oftentimes people have this misconception that diversity just means race. Well, that's one aspect of diversity, but the diversity umbrella is much broader than just race. It's just all of these different identities. I heard someone say diversity are the differences that matter. And I think that's an important, that's a very, I like that very clear, succinct definition of what diversity is. Differences that matter, because we all have differences from one another. But diversity really focuses on these differences that matter. And once we have that level of diversity, we'll start to get diversity of perspective, diversity of thought, diversity of understanding, right? But we want that diversity of perspective and thought to come from people with radically different life experiences than us, because that type of diversity of thought and perspective is very, very valuable to us, to our community, to our organization. So sometimes people say, well, diversity is just diversity of thought. Well, it is, but we want it to come from people who think very, very different from us. Does that make sense? So diversity, we can almost say diversity is a noun. Diversity can be measured by ways that we identify. Along those lines, and by the way, that's not an exhaustive list. There are other ways that we identify. These are just some of the more common ways that we identify. And typically, if you see an organization really amping up their diversity efforts, usually they're saying, we want to get people with these different types of backgrounds or different identities in our workplaces. There's also this idea of intersectionality. Intersectionality is this theoretical framework for understanding all of these identities and how they relate or intersect or overlap with one another. And it just acknowledges that we're more than just one thing. And all these identities kind of interplay and overlap. So if I were to say, oh, someone's a Black gay woman, for instance, well, Black is an identity, that's her race. Gay is her sexual orientation, that's an identity. And then woman is her gender, that's an identity. But these three identities make up a person. And so the nuances of this intersection is very important, particularly when we're thinking about people who may identify with multiple, for instance, underprivileged identities. Because some of these issues could be a race issue, they could be a social economic issue, they could be a gender issue. So intersectionality allows us to kind of look through this prism to understand, some of the issues, that some of us face, day in and day out and in our community. Very good. And then you have inclusion. Inclusion is a little bit different than diversity. Actually, can anybody share what they think inclusion means? I first want to acknowledge that I do a lot of interactive and asking questions because I don't want to talk at you for an hour. I really do want this to be us talking with one another, engaging with one another, learning from one another. It just makes it much more fun. And I think it would be so boring if you just heard my voice for an hour straight, for sure. Very good. I see some thoughts here in the comments. I love it. Treating the same as everyone else, being fully involved. Everyone has a place at the table, acceptance within the group, access, equal opportunity, intentionally seeking other voices and representation. Yes, that's exactly what inclusion means. So we can think of inclusion as culture work. So if diversity is a verb, if diversity is a noun, then inclusion is a verb. Inclusion asks the question, well, what are we doing with our diversity, right? It's not just enough to have people in our spaces that are different from one another. The question is, are we leveraging those differences? And inclusion is the secret, not the secret, it's a very known one, but it's the magic sauce when it comes to diversity. That is how we experience the power of diversity, is if we are creating an inclusive environment, an inclusive space. So inclusion is absolutely key. So do you think you can have diversity without inclusion? Any yeses? Philip is saying yes. Kathy is, Phil's saying no. Kathy is saying yes. Yeah. Of course not, some people say. Some people say yes. There's a quote by Verna Myers. She says, inclusion, diversity is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance, right? So yes, we can be invited to the party, but doesn't mean that we're participating, that we're dancing, that we're a part of things. And so we can be diverse. We can be in a space full of a whole lot of diversity, but it doesn't mean everyone in that space feels included. And so we have to be very intentional about not only our diversity efforts, but creating a place where people feel that they're included. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So when you think about inclusion, I want you to think about, and I'm starting with inclusion because allyship is a way that we can create inclusivity. It's a verb. It's one of the things that we can do to create an inclusive environment. So when you think about inclusion, the way I like to describe it is a place where all feel welcomed, all feel valued, all feel respected, and all feel heard. Welcome, valued, respected, and heard. And if we can make sure everyone, no matter how you identify, feel welcome, valued, respected, and heard, we tend to get we start to feel that we belong there. We tend to get a sense that this is a place for me. There's been some very interesting studies that said our desire, our need to feel that we belong is almost as strong, only second to our desire or need or feeling to be, our need to be loved. That's how strong our need to belong is, right? We all have this inherent desire to feel that we belong. And we do that because we are humans and we are social creatures and we want to be a part of a group. And so creating a place where people feel that way is very, very important. So that's what diversity is. That's what inclusion is. We didn't get into equity because I want to spend the rest of our time talking about being an ally. But it's important that we understand where ally fits. It's also important that we understand what diversity and inclusion is, and that there is a difference. Diversity is a noun. You can think of it that way. Inclusion is a verb, is what we do with our diversity. And it's a seat at the table. Yes, but it's also, a voice at the table, right? It's a seat at the table, but a voice at the table. All right. Any questions about that? Does that make sense? And I'm open to any questions that you have. All right. Good stuff. All right. So, and I'm just looking over at the chat as to make sure I don't miss anything happening there. So that is the context that I want you to think about DE&I. By the way, and this is something that I can't help but mention culture, because I'm a big believer that it all starts with our culture. I mentioned inclusion is culture work, and a culture kind of helps define our how of our organizations and then the people that we come in contact with. Culture informs what is encouraged, discouraged, accepted, or rejected within a particular group. And every organization has a culture. The question is always, are we intentional about our culture? Is this something that we want to create? Are we intentional about the type of culture we want to create? So any DE&I work that you do, any initiative that you undertake, the challenge that we have with any DE&I work, the challenge that I see with a lot of clients that I have, you're going to struggle if DEI is and feels like a check off the box activity. If tonight is it for allyship or DE&I, then obviously we're not going to have the impact that we want to have. And so what we need to do to make sure this is, your DEI initiatives, whatever they may be, last and they're sustained over the long term, is incorporating them and integrating them into your culture. Because culture is what is sustained over a long period of time. Even through challenging times, culture tends to maintain itself. And so DEI work has to be integrated into the culture. In order to do that, we have to understand where it fits in our culture. And oftentimes I say DEI closes the gap between our espoused values, right? Who we say we are and what we value, and our lived behavior. DEI work can allow us to live out our values every single day. And living out our values every day allows us to be the best version of ourselves, the best version of our organization. So whatever values Household Goods aspire to or live like every single day, aspire to live like every single day, we have to connect DEI, allyship to that work, and make sure that this is just an expression of who we are, part of the DNA of who we are. Does that make sense? So that's how I want you to think about allyship and DEI in general. Speaking of allyship, but what is an ally? This is a way to establish some shared meaning. What is an ally? How would you define what an ally is? You don't have to be fancy here. It doesn't have to be a Webster dictionary definition. Just what do you think? What is an ally? How would you, in your own words, how would you define an ally? Yeah. Partner, Mary says, someone you can count on. Judy says, someone who stands up for someone else. Supporter, very good, a friend. Yes. Any other thoughts? Yeah. Yeah, I think you got it. That's the gist of what an ally is. An ally is a person who works to facilitate the development of, to improve the experience of all employees, in particular those who are underrepresented or in groups that are marginalized. Everyone has the ability to be an ally, as privilege is intersectional, right? White women can be actionable allies for people of color. Men can be allies to women. Cis people can be allies to members of the LGBTQ plus community. Able-bodied people can be allies to those with different abilities. Economically privileged people can be allies to those who are not, and so on and so on and so on, right? Allyship is inherently intersectional, right? So for instance, anybody know what yesterday was?
International Women's Day.
Very good, Mike. Yes, Mike gets the gold star. International Women's Day, you got it. And International Women's Day is a day that we can recognize all the wonderful accomplishments of women all around the world. We can recognize the accomplishments of women in our workplaces. We can recognize the accomplishments of women in our homes. Right? It's a day of recognition, but to be an ally, it's more than just recognizing, right? The question is, how are we going to respond? So an ally not only recognizes that yesterday was International Women's Day, but they are responding to yesterday being International Women's Day. And as a matter of fact, they're not just responding on March 8th, which is the date it was this year. They're responding on March 9th. It's International Women's Week. And then next week, it'll be International Women's Month and International Women's Year. If you're an ally to a woman and to women and in general, that allyship doesn't start and end on one day. It's a way that we come alongside and we support those that may even be different from us. I believe, at least I hope and pray, that I am an ally for women. I hope that I'm an ally for those in the LGBTQ plus community. I'm hoping I'm an ally for people that identify in many different ways that I don't identify, but I don't have to be an ally to them. Right? Is actually typically an ally does not share an identity. But allyship is less about being and more about doing. Right? It really is. It's more than just a label. Allyship isn't just saying, oh, okay, I'm an ally. And that's it. That's not like, all right, the work is done. I'm an ally. I can call myself an ally and that's it. Allyship, it's about what you do. And I want you to think about being an ally as more than just a noun, but a verb. Is your actions should shout whether you're an ally or not just because we call ourselves an ally. Does that make sense? So I'm going to show a quick video. And this is a video of, and I show this video in different type of context. I show when I talk about privilege, I show it when I talk about allyship. But this is Dr. Joy DeGruy, and it's called A Trip to the Grocery Store. And you see what an ally did for her in the moment. This ally happened to be her sister-in-law, but you get a chance to see what an ally what an actionable ally looks like. So hang tight. I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to stop my video. I'm going to share my screen so you can see her talk about her trip to the grocery store. Here we go. Hold on, let me just rewind it. Here we go.
My sister-in-law, who's half black, half white, but looks white, blue eyes, whiter than most white folks, very white. She and I, we kind of grew up together. We raised our children together. So they're first cousins, and it's a wonderful, very, very multicultural family. So we're going in a Safeway one day. And Kathleen, my sister-in-law, is in front of me, and she's, writing a check for her groceries. Now, my daughter, who at the time was 10 years old, was standing with me, and I was directly behind her, getting ready to get my groceries. So Kathleen comes up, and the checker, who's a strawberry blonde, freckled, very delightful, warm, the checker, this young woman, is talking to Kathleen. Hey, how you doing? This is a nice day today. They're just chatting up, and says, yeah. So Kathy writes her check, and she steps off to the side with her groceries because she's waiting for me. Of course, again, Kathleen looks white, right? So I come up, no conversation. She looks up at me, absolutely no, just a little chatter. And I write my check. My daughter, however, is 10, notices immediately the difference in how she responds to me. So I write my check, and she goes, I'm going to need 2 pieces of ID. At which point my daughter looks at me, and she gets very, very embarrassed, and tears are kind of come up in her eye, like, Mommy, you're not gonna let her do this. Why is she doing this to us, right? So I'm trying to figure out what I should do, because behind me are 2 elderly white women, right? And I'm thinking, okay, so then I become the angry black woman, right? And they're gonna be, and I'm just trying to second guess all the drama. So then I just give her the 2 pieces of ID. I said, some things you gotta choose your battles, right? And then it gets worse. She pulls out the bad check book, right? So this is the book that shows the people who have written bad checks. So she starts searching for my license in the bad checks, at which point it's just out of control now. Just as I'm standing there trying to decide what to do, and it's really deeply humiliating. Now my daughter is in full-blown emotionally upset, who's 10. My sister-in-law walks back over. And she steps in and she says, excuse me, why are you doing this? And the checker goes, well, what do you mean? She goes, why are you taking her through all of these changes? Why are you doing that? She goes, well, this is our policy. She goes, no, it's not your policy because you didn't do that with me. Oh, well, I know you've been, she goes, no, she's been here for years. I've only lived here for 3 months. And so at this point, the 2 white elderly ladies go, oh, I can't believe what this checker has done with this woman. It's totally unacceptable. At which point the manager walks over. So the manager walks over and says, is there a problem here? And then my sister-in-law again responds. She goes, yes, there is a problem here. Here's what happened. So you see, she used her white privilege. And even though Kathleen is half black and half white, she recognizes what that means. And she made the statement. She pointed out the injustice. And she, as a result of that one act, influenced everyone in that space. But what would have happened? I can't know for certain had the black woman said, this is unfair. Why are you doing this to me? Would it have had the same impact? But Kathleen knew that she walked through the world differently than I did. And she used her white privilege to educate and make right a situation that was wrong. That's what you can do every single day.
What do you think of Dr. DeGrew's story?
Powerful.
Isn't it powerful?
Yeah.
How many of you would have spoken up in that situation to say, wait, something's not right here. This is not right. It's hard. It's hard to do. And Bridget, I hear you. It's infuriating. Yes. But what Kathleen was, what her sister was in that moment was an ally. It was a way that she came alongside of her, showed support. And sometimes we all enjoy privilege that we get to flex on the behalf of someone else, right? That is how we should use our privilege. Now, I want to acknowledge that there are some words that are in this space that are fairly loaded, and privilege is one of them. Privilege is not an easy thing to discuss. I know that as soon as some people hear that word, they recoil, they start to get defensive, because I think it's because they lack an understanding of maybe what privilege is. Privilege is just an unearned advantage that some people have over others, access to rights or advantages that others just do not enjoy, just do not get to enjoy. Some of our identities, we say are privileged identities. This is where I think the hang up is. And I think it's a distinction that I think we need to quickly address. Privilege does not mean your life wasn't hard. Privilege does not mean that you didn't work very hard to get what you have. That's not what privilege is saying. I have a friend who is a CEO of a company in Exeter. Great CEO. He's a great CEO. The second company that he's led, the first company was acquired by a large medical device company. This company went public. He did both of those things. He's brilliant. This man grew up in Vermont, and he grew up dirt poor. And when I say dirt poor, I'm not saying that as hyperbole. He had dirt floors in his home. He didn't have McDonald's until he was 15 years old. His family couldn't afford to eat at McDonald's, not one time, before he was 15 years old. And even that time, he got McDonald's on his own because he had a job, right? If I say he enjoys privilege or he has privilege because he happens to be a white man, he gets very upset. And he says, no one has given me anything. I worked very hard for everything that I have. And I can't argue with him. He's worked very hard to get where he is in life right now. He's a brilliant, brilliant man. Privilege just tries to say, privilege doesn't mean that your life wasn't hard or that your life didn't have obstacles, but you didn't have all the obstacles, right? Maybe your race wasn't an obstacle, a barrier for you. Now for him, socioeconomic was an obstacle for him, but race was not an obstacle for him. His gender was not an obstacle for him. So in those ways, he enjoyed a certain level of privilege. Again, it doesn't mean he doesn't work hard or his life wasn't tough. Let me just, if anybody haven't learned this already, everyone's life is hard. This is hard. Like life is hard. Right? And I don't care how you identify, unless you're born with kind of a silver spoon in your mouth, but even then your life is probably hard. You have totally different issues that we can't even think or imagine, right? But life is hard for everyone. What privilege is just trying to communicate is that there's certain aspects of your identities that didn't make it even harder, like race or gender or socioeconomic or physical abilities or your sexual orientation. Does that make sense? So that is what we think about when it comes to privilege. I'm going to share the screen with you. Again, this is a slide from earlier. And I guess I want you to think about ways in which you identify. Of all these things here that you see, there's some ways that we can identify. I want you to think about your own identities. Think about your race, think about your gender, think about how you identify, ethnicity, etc. And I would love for you to share what parts of your identities do you think about the most, and what parts of your identities do you think about the least? What part do you think about the most, and what part do you think about the least? You put it in the chat, or you could just take yourself off mute and speak up. Gender. I see you over there. I'm assuming that's when you think about the most, Amy. Gender, parental status, profession, gender, age, physical abilities, the least. Yes. Gender and age, the most. Physical abilities, the least. Yes. Gender, socioeconomic status, race and gender. Very good. Very, very interesting. I asked that question for a reason, because sometimes we have a hard time identifying where we may enjoy kind of everyday privilege. Generally speaking, it doesn't apply for everyone. The pieces of our identities that we think about the least typically are areas where we enjoy privilege. Pieces of our identities we think about the most typically are areas where we do not enjoy privilege, right? When I was 24, 25, 30, 32, I never thought about my age as a barrier. But as I'm approaching 50, I would imagine as I get older, my age is on my mind. I'm thinking about, are people going to look at me different, think about me? Do they have biases against me because I'm getting older, right? Do they prefer younger people, right? And the reason why, as we get older, we think about our age because our privilege tends to go away as we get older, right? Men rarely think about them being men because they enjoy privilege as being a male, being a man. Women always know that they're women, right? And they're always reminded that they're women. When they walk into the workplace, they got to think about it. When they're being treated a certain way, they ask themselves, "Oh, did he say that to me because I'm a woman, or would he say that to anyone?" Right? And usually, are those types of the areas that we think about the most are typically areas that we don't enjoy privilege. For instance, there's not a day that goes by where I don't think about my race. It's a daily acknowledgement. I'm always reminded of it. There's no way I can escape it. It is what it is. I don't want to escape it, by the way, but thinking about it every day is something that I do. I'm always very surprised when I talk to white people. They say, I really don't consider race very often, or my whiteness, or what that means to me, or how that, informs how I walk through life. I just kind of go about my day and live my life. I don't think about the fact that I'm white. Black people and people of color think about the fact that they're Black and people of color all the time, right? It's always there. And it's because it's not an identity where we enjoy privilege. I don't think often about being a man because I enjoy the privilege of being a man. Does that make sense? Poor people, and I should say, that's not a right way to say it. People who are socioeconomically disadvantaged, they always think about the fact that they don't have any money, and because they're thinking about, where am I going to get my next meal from? I need stable housing. Where am I going to get some furniture, right? All these things that it's always on their mind. They're making decisions about, do I pay this medical bill, or do I buy food this week? They can't escape it. But if you enjoy privilege socioeconomically, you don't even think about it. You just live your life the way you live your life. I'm not saying that you never think about money or stability or financial security, but it just doesn't dominate your day. And if there's an identity that you rarely think about, it's typically, I never think about my sexual identity, my sexual orientation, but those in the LGBTQ plus think about it every day. They think about it every day. Does that make sense? So one of the things that we can do is we can use our everyday privilege, this everyday privilege that we have, and our ordinary privilege, and start learning about people who lack that ordinary privilege. Start thinking about, what is their life like? Let's really exercise your empathy muscles, and really step out of yourself, step into the world of those other people, and try to learn, what life is like for them. Look for opportunity to speak up and act, just like Kathleen did for Dr. DeGrew, and be thoughtful about moments when we inadvertently speak over the groups we mean to support, right? So just figuring out our own identity, understanding our own identities can help us be mindful of people, again, that have different identities, that walk through life a little bit different than us. And it's so easy to just ignore, not on purpose, but just because we're just not used to being intentional about thinking about ways that other people may walk through life, that we have to really prompt myself. Very good. Just want to check to see if there's any questions here. I don't want to. Very good. All right. All right. So being an ally. I think you all had it right initially. It's just ways that we can support, the ways that we can advocate, a partner. Karen Catlin wrote this book called Better Allies. And in her book, she listed 7 archetypes to be an ally, just 7 ways that we can express our allyship. Now, mind you, there isn't one right way or one wrong way to be an ally. If our heart is in the right place and we truly desire to be an ally, we can figure it out. We can use our own talent, our own gifts to come alongside those that need that level of support. But she gave some archetypes and some ways that the common ways that we can be an ally. So I'm going to share these archetypes with you to give you some ideas that if you're, whether you're an ally today or want to be an ally tomorrow, this is maybe some ideas on how to do it. So one is, the first is the upstander. The upstander is what Kathleen did in that video. The upstander is the one who speaks up. They use their voice, they see biased behavior, they see unfairness, and they use their voice to correct the wrong, or at least draw attention to that situation. We can all be upstanders. Some of us, is our natural way to ally. It's our personality says we always speak up. We're not afraid to use our voice. But some of us express our allyship by being an upstander. We use our voice and we speak up. Another way that we can be an ally is a sponsor. This is where we kind of champion someone from underrepresented communities. We support, I see this in the workplace, we support their career growth. We sponsor them. It's a little bit different from a mentor, but we're actively involved in their personal progression, whether it's career progression or personal progression. And then there's a champion. So a champion, again, I see this in the workplace as well. A champion, if they're always kind of directing questions to that person of color or to the woman who they're really trying to give them opportunities to shine. The amplifier is the person that ensures underrepresented voices are heard. And so that's the amplifier. The advocate, I think it speaks for itself. You advocate. You do things like using inclusive language. You're aware of gender terms. You use language that embraces all walks of people. That is what an advocate may do. The scholar is very interesting to me. So the scholar, for instance, is if you're the person that after the murder of George Floyd in 2020, if you're the person that said, you know what, there's stuff going on here, I just don't know enough about this, I'm going to kind of figure this out. I'm going to research, and you opened up your Google search, you looked at all these articles, you read about the history of racial injustice in the country, you ordered books on Amazon, you start reading these books. For instance, that is what a scholar does. A scholar takes opportunities to learn as much as they can about people that are different from them, and they're prompted to do that. They feel compelled to do that, and that's the way that we can express and our allyship by being a scholar. And finally, there is the confidant, and the confidant is the person that a person can go to be listened to. You ask questions. You're that shoulder. You're the person that people can vent to. They can share their challenges, their concerns, their worries, their victories. That's a friendship. That is a way that we can be an ally for being in friendship with some folks. I'm wondering if you look at these, for those that really say, all right, I'm an ally, which ones or two do you identify with? Which one do you think of these are how you express your allyship? You put it in chat. Gwen, I see you, and I'm going to ask you a question in a second. Very good. Gwen says sponsor and amplifier, sponsor, champion, scholar, upstander. I see you, Diane. Scholar, Janet, I see you, very important. Advocate, scholar, upstander, a sponsor. I see you, Karen. Excellent. Yes. Confidant, so important. We all need these relationships. I see a couple sponsors here as well. Yeah, there are many ways that we can express our allyship. This is by no means an exhaustive list, but there are many ways. Scholar, advocate, I see you, Sarah. Yes, and You know, I think I said it before, but everyone, you know, can be an ally, and everyone can use an ally. And there are different ways that we can be an ally to those that we come in contact with. And even subtle ways go a long way. I partner with a transgender man when we do gender identity sessions. I like to be authentic, and when I present and genuine, and I know there's certain topics that it's just not my life experience. And so when I do gender identity, I bring in Nick Ferriello, who's a transgender man, and he talks about gender identity and his experience, his walk through life, and it's a really cool, fun, educational, engaging session. But he'll tell you that if he goes on groups like this and he sees pronouns being used, he feels safe. He feels like this is a place that he can just be himself. So even using your pronouns communicates allyship, you know, to those that may see it, right? As you're trying to normalize, you know, this behavior. So those are ways that we can be an ally. Gwen asked the question, any advice on how to be an upstander in a way that doesn't diminish the person you're speaking up for? And yes, that makes perfect sense. It's hard to speak up. Oftentimes it's hard to speak up because there are relationships that we value, and we don't want to damage those relationships by speaking up. It's hard to speak up because we're not sure of the right things to say, and we don't want to make things worse. And that's the last thing we want to do. But yes, I think the idea of being an upstander is being direct, being respectful, and doing it in the way that preserves relationships. And one of the ways, I'll give you a quick tip. Just today, I heard someone say, we don't want to call out people. We want to call them in, if that makes sense. Everybody hear that expression? So we don't want to call out, we want to call them in. And one of the ways that we can do that, and this is a little nugget, along with my collective wisdom of a group, I'll say this all the time. It's not what you say, it's why you say it that people get defensive. It's not the content of what we say, it's the intent. And if we can share our intentions with people when we do confront them on maybe something that we witness, some biased behavior, if we let them know our intention is not just to make them feel horrible, it's not to beat them up, it's not to punish them, it's not to hurt them, it's not to blame them, but our intention is we want them to be the best they can be. Or our intention is to make sure this is an inclusive place for all of us. No matter how you identify, you feel welcome, valued, respected, and heard. If we share our intentions up front, typically it'll help these conversations go a little bit better. I have a resource that I'll share with you. I'll share with the group afterwards that also gets into calling out versus calling in. And it gives some tips on how to do that in a way that's more inviting than standoffish. Does that make sense? But it is not an easy thing to do. But it's a very important thing to do. And it takes courage, by the way, to be an upstander. And upstanders, they always speak up. If we witness behavior or speech that is biased, degrading, or offensive, we call out microaggressions. We take action if we see anyone being bullied, harassed, treated unfairly. You know, people in privileged positions have the ability to call out unacceptable behavior towards underrepresented people and be heard. Sometimes marginalized people may not be comfortable raising issues due to the fear of backlash or risk of jeopardizing their professional relationships, right? So you even saw on that video, Dr. DeGroote said, she's like, well, what if I spoke up? Now, all of a sudden, I'm the angry Black woman, right? It took someone else speaking up for that situation to be resolved. And so an upstander speaks up, and it takes courage. By the way, if you wait till you feel 100% comfortable before you use your voice and speak up, you will never speak up. You won't do it. You won't do it because courage is when we're faced with fear and we do it anyway. That's what courage is. There's no bravery without fear. There's no courage without fear, right? So courage is feeling that fear and just doing it because we know it's the right thing to do, because we know this is the type of the environment that we want to have here. This allows us to live according to our values here at Household Goods. So don't wait till you feel comfortable, because you'll never use your voice. You'll never say it. You'll never step in. You never take that risk. Courage is something that we do in spite of the fear that we're feeling or the anxiety that we're feeling to do it. And you can get better at this better. Our courage is like a muscle. If we're courageous in small things, then when the big things happen, we can start to be courageous in the bigger things. I always marveled, by the way. I'll see like a civil rights video of, say, the marches, Martin Luther King marching, and then being attacked by dogs and being bottles thrown at them and just beat up and clubbed and threatened. And I marvel at their courage, not their cause. Their cause is obviously yes, but the courage that it took to walk down these streets and be subjected to, that viciousness and the brutality. And I think I was reminded that I think for those people, that wasn't their first march. Their first march wasn't in Selma, right? Getting attacked by dogs. It took these steps to kind of get there, and then they courage built over time, and then it was Selma. Does that make sense? And because I remember thinking about it, like during the Black Lives Matter movement, my daughter wanted to join a march in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I was like, great, let's do it. Even walking in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, I had a little anxiety. People were looking at us funny. I'm like, is this safe? Like, what's going to happen here, right? But it takes those marches around Portsmouth, and then and then wherever, and then Boston, and before you get to Selma. But courage can be built up over time. So look for opportunities where you can be courageous, and then when the time comes, you'll do it. And if you're afraid to speak up, there's some things that we can do. Just some little tips. Sometimes if you hear something, just repeat what they said. Sometimes when you hear someone say, when they hear it back to them, they get it. Wait, did you just say you would never hire a woman for this job? Right? And they're like, wait, that's not right. That's not good, right? Ask for more information. Why does their gender matter? Just start to kind of inquire, be curious, and challenge that stereotype, whatever that stereotype is or that bias is. Highlight commonalities and express your feelings. Share your own process of change. I think when we make it a bit comfortable for people, you can say, yeah, I had very similar thoughts in the past, but I've learned that they were very limiting beliefs that I had about other people, and I needed to give people an opportunity. And when I did that, they shined. They were able to thrive. Make it personal to you. I want to share a quick story, and this is an allyship story. And I'm curious of how you would feel about it. There was a Black woman and a white woman. They were friends. And the Black woman went to the soup kitchen in Portsmouth. And she went there a couple of times a week to get meals to feed her family. She had an experience when she went there one day. One of the volunteers made a very racist joke. In the joke, it said something about they treat us like slaves here, or just something. It was just very racist. The Black woman was offended. She didn't say anything, but she told her white woman friend what happened. Her white friend said, "This is unacceptable. We need to do something about this." And the Black woman was like, "Well, I'm not sure. It's just, I don't know." And she's like, "No. This is unacceptable. They're making this a very uncomfortable environment for you. I'm going to do something." So the white woman calls the soup kitchen, talks to the owner, and says, "Hey, this is what happened." The owner says, "Man, I'm so sorry that this happened. I think I know who you're talking about. I'm going to have a conversation with him and make sure this never happens again." The white woman said, "That's not enough. Like that's not enough. Like this was just racist behavior. He needs to not volunteer. Like if this is kind of who he is, he can't serve these people who are coming from these communities." And the owner said, "Well, I don't know about that. That seems like a lot. This could be, I'll talk to them." The white woman said, "Listen, if you don't get rid of him, I'm going to call the newspaper and I'm going to let them know that the volunteers that you have at your place are racist. The owner finally relented and said, all right, I hear you. I don't want that to happen. I'll definitely tell this volunteer that he cannot volunteer anymore, at least out in the line, interacting with the community. What do you think about that story? Do you think the white woman did the right thing? Dan is saying yes. Yes. Let me ask maybe even an easier question. Do you think I see you over there, Kate. Yeah, Mr. Potential Learning Opportunity. I see you, Philip. Mark says you went a little bit too far. Do you think the white woman had the right intentions? Do you think her intentions were good? Yes, I think they were. She saw an injustice. She saw a friend being hurt and harmed. And she said, we got to do something about this, right? Her intentions were very good. But this is where I think the misstep was. This is what I think the white woman didn't have to, yeah, I see you, Kathy, didn't have to, this is my take on it. We don't get to decide how we can be an ally to those that we want to support. They get to tell us what allyship, what support, what advocation looks like, right? We don't get to decide that. And in that moment, I think her Black friend just wanted a confidant. She didn't need this advocate or running to the soup kitchen and putting up this fight for her. She just needed someone to share her frustrations with. Because by the way, what this white woman was able to do after she made that stink was go back to her home, back to her desk, and go about her life. That Black woman had to go in that soup kitchen twice a week still, right? And so actually, in her desire to help, she may have made it worse for this woman, right? So the right response is, how can I support you? What do you need for me to do? What do you want me to do? And I'll do it. Oh, you just need me to listen to you? Great. Now, if the Black woman said, I don't feel that I don't have the courage, I don't feel strong enough to go down there and talk to this woman, I'm just worried how this is going to affect me and my family. And if the white woman said, do you want me to go down there and have a conversation? Do you want this person let go, right? And if the Black woman said, yeah, I would love that, then that white woman had every right to go there and just, all right, like, I know how I'm going to support, I know how I'm going to be an ally. But outside of that, I think what happened is for a moment, this woman's allyship was more about her and her feeling good than about what the person that she was supporting. Allyship oftentimes costs us something. Allyship costs us something. And that's a very important concept for us to realize. There's a little bit of sacrifice to be a true ally. Everyone is an ally to those who are socioeconomically disadvantaged until they want to build affordable housing in your neighborhood. And you're like, not in my neighborhood, right? Not in my neighborhood. I don't want my housing values to go down, right? I'm going to lose a little bit of money, right? But being an ally means that we're willing to sacrifice even some of us for the benefit of someone else. And you do it because you know doing that makes us all better. Our community is better in that way. So, and I want to make sure I leave time for questions, but there's some very overt ways that we can be an ally. Like if we overhear insensitive remarks, name calling, slurs, belittling jokes. Jokes are oftentimes where microaggressions are expressed, but jokes can be really a minefield of just belittling behavior and exclusionary behavior. Non-inclusive language, stereotyping or ridiculing, social avoidance, bullying, threats, or assault. These are ways that we can just come alongside and be an ally. And in subtle ways, someone not being heard, certain types of people styles being favored, personality and fit being prioritized over knowledge, skills, and abilities. I see this often in corporations. They talk about fit. It's just a way for them to exclude people that are not like them. That's something that we have to be mindful of, and allies speak up and recognize that. If we are the ones that maybe we made the mistake, just pay attention to impact as well. If we realize we said something wrong or hurtful, apologize and move on. Use it as a learning opportunity, something that I saw a bunch of you mention in the chat that was missed in that situation. Maybe that was a learning opportunity, not just for him, but for everyone at the soup kitchen. Maybe there was a great opportunity to say, all right, let's talk about this and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and our words have impact. That makes sense? Mm-hmm. I'll share one quick thing, and then I'll open up for some more questions. First, let's talk Ann. I see Ann, raise your hand. Please unmute, let's do it. Ann, you still there?
Ann, can you unmute?
We'll come back to Ann and just try to figure out how you can unmute yourself, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I'll share just a quick example that just happened this week, a very small, subtle way that we can be an ally. I saw allyship in action. So we were talking about allyship, and there was a person on the call telling a story. And in this story, he called someone a Karen. Everybody heard that term, a Karen? And he said, Karen, this was a Karen. And then she said, and he was like, oh, y'all know what a Karen is, right? And everybody was kind of like, yeah, we understand what a Karen is. So, and then something interesting happened in the chat. See, because it turns out there was a woman on the call, part of the company. Her name was Karen. And I guess if your name is Karen, it's a bad time to be named Karen, because you're hearing this term being Karen. And it's not very pleasant for you. It's not when it's used in a derogatory, demeaning way. I would imagine it just doesn't feel very good. So I'm going to share this chat exchange, and this is what happened. Kim in that company said, we shouldn't use the term Karen because that too can be offensive. We do have a coworker named Karen. At least to me, it can be I think she meant offensive. They're not sensitive, or it can be sensitive to use the term. So that's Kim speaking up. Karen, who she was being an ally for, speaks up and said, yep, thanks, Kim, right? She's acknowledging, you spoke up on my behalf, thank you. Eric, this is the person who used the word in the first place. Look at his response. I apologize for using the term. I understand that it can be offensive. And then you see Kim respond to Eric saying, all here to learn, right? Thank you, Eric. It's a very subtle example of what this can look like. We can make a mistake. We can make a misstep. We can be careless with our words and have an impact that we didn't intend. And if we are called out on it, we shouldn't be defensive, and we shouldn't say you're being too sensitive. And everybody uses the word Karen. What we do is we apologize. We say, thank you for letting me know. I'm going to try to do better. Thank you. And we give people space to learn right there as well. That is what we can do. And so any questions? I know we only have a few minutes, but any questions? And it looks like Ann hasn't figured out how to unmute. I don't know if the host can unmute her or not, but I would love to hear any questions that you have, or if you have a question, throw it in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer for you. I see you, Karen. Karen, I'm wondering how you feel about it when people use the term Karen. Yeah.
Hang on, Karen, I'm gonna let you unmute.
Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you, whoever unmuted me, because I couldn't figure out how to do it. How do you deal with a young person who speaks in a derogatory manner? Because you know the expression, the apple doesn't fall from the tree. So you know it's coming from the family.
Yeah.
What do you do at that point?
Well, Karen, I would say the fact that you have a little empathy, even when considering his language, saying "all right" or her language, saying they're obviously learning this from somewhere, right? And so even just taking that approach and coming alongside that young person, they may not understand the impact of their words or how rude it is or how hurtful it can be. And oftentimes, my first approach is just assume ignorance, right? Assume ignorance. Assume just people just don't know any better. And so what I try to do is raise awareness, try to take away that ignorance, and so maybe having that conversation with them. Sometimes it's a bit of immaturity, I guess, like when you're a certain age, it just feels rebellious to kind of use bad language. So maybe this is a phase that hopefully they will grow out of. But have a real conversation with them and tell them how it's affecting you, and most importantly, how it could affect them. People always need to understand what's in it for them, like to change their behavior. And when people understand that my behavior is actually hurting me, then I'm more likely to change that behavior. Yeah. Philip.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. What do you think, Philip?
I was just, thanks for their presentation tonight. I've really enjoyed it. I was just going to ask, since the last 2 years, since George Floyd, I imagine you're doing a lot of work with individuals, corporations, nonprofits. Are you seeing, from your perspective, a real difference? And I'm not sure how you define difference, whether that's people genuinely interested in it, people going through the motions because they feel like they have to. I'm just curious to hear what you're seeing out there about how people are embracing or not embracing DEI.
All of the above, Philip. There are people since 2020, and I know the term is a bit overused, but I think 2020 was this kind of great awakening we see for some people. They've been about this work for years, and particularly if you identify a certain way, it's been your life experience. You can't get away from it. You're always thinking about it. But 2020, I think there was this shift, and it felt like a seismic shift that people started to care about these issues, particularly us in this area, by the way. New England is fairly insulated, particularly depending on where you live in New England. So I live in Maine. Maine is the whitest state in the whole country, right? That is government statistically true, right? That's a fact. Vermont is number 2. New Hampshire isn't very far behind. Massachusetts isn't very far behind. And so a lot of us here haven't been exposed to a whole lot of diversity, at least race diversity. And so we've kind of lived in this little bubble, and we thought that all this stuff only just happens over there, and we just haven't had to think about it. But since 2020, people are starting to think about it. And you have people who are very, very passionate about it. They are genuine about this work. You have a few people going through the motions, and then you also have people who are dead set opposed to it. And as a matter of fact, I would say that we're starting to hear those voices now more and more than pushing back against, some of the work that's been happening over the last couple of years. I think for the first year, they were like, all right, I get it. George Floyd, I get it. Second year, they're thinking like, all right, like, when are we going to stop talking about this? Now they're like, all right, enough, right? I'm done talking about it. Let's just go back to business as usual. But I think what those people don't realize is that we're not going back. Right. This is not a luxury anymore. Really thinking about this work, being focused on this work. This is really a necessity. But I think great question, Phil. And I was long-winded answer, but I'm seeing them really all along the continuum. But I will tell you this: the organizations that are really making an impact, that are making change, is because leadership is behind them. Their boards are behind them. They need that level of support because it can feel overwhelming. They're going to get that pushback, and they need to know that they're supported along the way. And when they're not, they fade away. Great question. Any others? Yeah. I was just looking at some of the comments here. I'll give another 10 seconds for any other questions. I'll look in the chat, just make sure I got them all. I will tell you that no matter where you are on this journey, no matter if, you know, whether it's since George Floyd, since before that, or even tonight was the first time you ever really considered what diversity, equity, inclusion was. Welcome. We need you. If you've been doing this for a while, thank you for your work. I mean, and if you're new to this, welcome. The more of us that care about this work, the bigger impact that we have. We can pull in the same direction, and we can affect our communities. And I probably didn't stress this enough. I love the mission of your organization. I love what you're doing. I love who you're supporting. I love the service, dare I say, ministry that you are providing for the community, and it's a wonderful thing. So that means if I can support you in any way, if I can come alongside of you, just don't hesitate to reach out to me and let me know. If I can share some resources with you, please don't hesitate to let me know. And no matter where you are in this journey, keep at it. Keep at it. The work can feel overwhelming at times because there's so much, but stick with it. We'll never make it fully, right? Perfection is not possible. What we're after is progress. We just want to be better at it one day to the next, better next week than we were this week, better month after month, year after year. And by the way, and I'll just say this before I leave, you will stumble. You're not going to always get it right. You're going to try some things. It's not going to work the way you hoped. That's okay. That's a part of the journey. That's a part of the learning process. Just keep your eyes on the prize, stick to your values, and you'll have even a greater impact than you're having right now in your community. Sound good?
Well, and Jermaine, thank you so much for starting Household Goods on this journey, because we would like, as we've Sharon and I've talked to you before, to have dialogues with the board as we try to figure out our DEI plans,
yes,
which we have not started. So this has been a very fascinating and a lot of information to think about.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Barbara. So good to see you all.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your night. Thanks for having me. See you all.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody that I can't see. Thank you.
So that was certainly a lot to think about. As we close out tonight's annual meeting, I just want to thank all of our donors of goods who've remained so loyal with us over the last year while we've moved you around the building many times. But as Sharon showed in her slide earlier, there's now a new orange door, which will remain there. And we thank you for all of your furniture and items that you donate, because without them, we can't give them away. I also would like to thank our financial supporters who are critical to keeping us in our sustainable position, and who graciously support us year in and year out. Of course, without the volunteers, we wouldn't have the work done in the building that is being done. So thank you to all of you, both who are here tonight and who are not here, for all the hours that you've given and all of the time that we've given as we've rearranged ourselves and made ourselves stronger. And without our staff, we wouldn't have the strength and the fortitude day in and day out to do this. So thank you to all of you who have been here, and Bridget, who has gone, who's been here for years as well, who tirelessly work throughout the year. So thank you to everyone that came tonight. You are all true supporters of Household Goods. And thank you so much. Take care. And we'll see you on Main Street sometime in the near future. The meeting is adjourned. The annual meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.